you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Triawaje from Mama Op Medicals. We're into health technologies. Glad to be here. Thank you.
And he's a very good programmer.
Hi, everyone. My name is Olivia. I'm from Flip Africa, a digital marketplace that helps SMEs, businesses, and companies of all sizes to find the professionals they need.
All right. Thank you. About to invite Ronald. So Ronald is just going to go through us briefly what GEW is, and also how you can participate. There are going to be a few ideas shared that have been done worldwide, and they also have a few ideas for you. So I've tried to get partners into the room with whom you can work with. There's somebody I was hoping would be here today. There's a gentleman who runs sports galas. One thing that has been coming up has been Alumni Association sports leagues everywhere. I think there are now over 10 or 20 countrywide, even in Uganda itself. And they are actually a hotbed of entrepreneurs. This is one good way you can reach entrepreneurs. So this gentleman hopefully will be here later on and you can actually meet him. I want to invite Ronald.
All right. Good morning. I'm not very sure why we are using a mic, but I imagine because it's available, we have to use it. Yeah, but I'm very honored to be here. My name is Ronald Mukasa. As I was introduced, I look after research and learning at Enterprise Uganda. That is a fancy title for being the person who is in charge of making sure we are using knowledge to make good decisions as an organization. We are very honored that you have accepted our invitation and you took off time this morning to be here in person. It is such an honor to have you. And I hope that we appreciate that the biggest purpose of this, the Global Entrepreneurship Week broadly, but also what we are trying to do here is largely for us to make sure we network and strengthen the ecosystem. And that's the entrepreneurial ecosystem. All of you here, in one way or the other, are tied to this word called entrepreneurship. And you do it in different ways. I've met people who are into health technology. I've met a couple of people, GEW I know well. But the point is that Oloya there is a fish farmer, and I don't know what he does nowadays, but a lot of things. We are here with the Numa brand, as we love to call it. Today, Mr. Masco told me Canadians have called him, they are buying the Numa. Please, if you don't eat Numa, you have to eat it after attending this meeting. All the kalo and the bushera and the posho and the rice. And then we also have a wealth of knowledge of people who are leading in various sectors to help entrepreneurship go deeper. I think when Doctor introduced himself, he said he's one of the oldest people in this sector. And these are people who have been with the sector for close to 30 years plus, to make sure that we develop this idea that an entrepreneur can be built and an entrepreneur can be able to run their businesses sustainably. So I'll say a few things about the Global Entrepreneurship Week, but before I do that, I'm going to just mention a couple of things with regard to as Enterprise Uganda and with regard to what is happening in our space. So those of you who are possibly meeting Enterprise Uganda for the first time, Enterprise Uganda is a business development services organization. It has been in the business of supporting small and medium enterprises for the last 22 years. And largely what we do is to help the entrepreneur be able to manage the pains of growth, manage the pains of starting, manage the pains of growth, manage the pains of changes in times as we have seen in the last 3 years. So that's largely what we do. And we are also the hosts of the Global Entrepreneurship Week. The Global Entrepreneurship Week is hosted by Enterprise Uganda, but the nature of the event is such that our job is to make sure that as many people host events and host activities during the Global Entrepreneurship Week. So that's largely the reason why we are having this meeting. We've been hosting this for the last, I think now it's about 12 years. And through this time, one thing which we have seen is that it is an exciting event to celebrate the entrepreneur. One of the things which is usually not done very well in our community, and I think it's changing now, but we don't celebrate entrepreneurs enough. We don't celebrate them enough, and you'll quickly notice that when you go to your church, chances are high that if a politician enters the church, the front row will be evacuated for the what? For the politician, isn't it? They say a politician enters, you come and sit here in front. Usually when an entrepreneur enters, people don't know, do we evacuate or is it okay, let him? But the point is that we all know that the entrepreneur is the person, the individual, who is actually creating the jobs that we are looking for. And one of the things which we think is very exciting is the fact that there is an increasing acknowledgement of the central role entrepreneurship plays and enterprise development plays in the transformation of the nation. I think that has been acknowledged. Those of you who have had an opportunity to NDP3, it is right at the center of NDP3 that what we need is businesses that are growing. Every business that survives, every person who employs 50 people, 10 people, 100 people, that is the person, that is the institution which we need to protect jealously. Because everything which we take is a business. The tea bag which we have used, the water which we are using, some of you took the drinking chocolate, all those are jobs which are created in the places where those companies are seated. We need to see more of those companies here in this country. And that process is the work which you do as people who support entrepreneurs in various ways. Now, this journey of the Global Entrepreneurship Week has been ongoing for the last 12 years. And really what the Global Entrepreneurship Week attempts to do is to inspire, to engage, to connect the people who are in the entrepreneurship space, and most importantly, to celebrate them. We want to make sure that we celebrate every entrepreneur who you have in your space. Some of you are running spaces for entrepreneurs in different settings. For example, GEW as a company, I know, has so many people who run companies within GEW. I hope I understand it right. So every place you see GEW being manufactured, that is an independent business, which is what? Manufacturing GEW. But GEW is the holding brand. But that's a model they have built. But we want them to be able to celebrate that group of people around them, that group of people who have actually made it possible. So the question and the reason why we invited you here today is simply to make sure that we communicate this, but we also request you and challenge you to make sure that this coming November, during the 3rd week, we actually celebrate. And we usually use the whole of the month of November to do as many activities as possible. So what we invited you is to be a partner. And what does it mean to be a partner? To be a partner is to make sure that you have done an event, isn't it? And I'm going to give a couple of examples in a moment. But to be a partner is to actually make sure that you do at least one event. Now, a partner can do 5 events. And now we have and when we talk about these events, we are not talking about people going out of their normal setting. My brother here is a district commercial officer. And as a district commercial officer, during that week, you can say, you know what, in the town hall, we are going to invite the district chairman to just invite the entrepreneurs and have a chat. We take a bottle of water, take a soda, and we celebrate the entrepreneurs in the city during that week. And that's something which can happen. And why it's important is because every time you hear entrepreneurs speak, most of the times they feel that they have been left out of conversation. Usually, if they tell you entrepreneurs are going to speak about the country, usually they'll talk about taxes, isn't it? So that the only time we engage with the government is when we are being what? Taxed. And we think that that should be different. So this is a month when we actually celebrate. Derek, you can just run down. I think I can't read it when it is that size. But we are going to share this idea bank with you, but there are a whole array of things which you can do. You can do them in the no, I think go to the activity bank. Eh? This seems okay. Right. Are we there? Yeah, so what we seek to do is the activities can be within the ecosystem. Those of you who are ecosystem players. The activities can be at a policy level. Some people are government people. They are pertinent issues. Things as basic as trading licenses and what they are supposed to do. For example, most people actually think a trading license is a tax. Yet actually a trading license is not a what? A tax. The purpose of a trading license is to help the regulatory environment. So it is to make sure people are educated, to make sure that people are actually doing things right, to make sure that that office can be able to visit. It can be at the space of it could be at the space of education and learning. It could be at any level. Now, the way what we request partners is that you look within your system during this November, it's usually the third week of November. You look within your system, and what you attempt to do is to find one activity that you can do with your people. So, for example, GEW may say that, you know what, I have franchised the GEW brand to possibly 200 people. During this week, I am going to make sure that we possibly tell the stories of our people on our social media platforms, one by one, a picture and what they have done. That is you celebrating the people in your system, and that can be an activity, and you'll capture the level of engagement which has happened, you'll capture the level of participation. They could also invite them for even a virtual event to just make sure that they have conversations there. So there are a number of activities. Some of these are the activities which they do all over the world. We have what is called a huddle. A huddle is a simple event where you get together a group of 5 to 10 entrepreneurs, and when you get them together, you ask those 5 to 10 entrepreneurs to simply solve the problem of one entrepreneur, isn't it? So the entrepreneurs will sit around and they will be able to say, you know what challenge are you dealing with? Then you say, someone says, I'm dealing with HR problems. I have this employee, he's a big problem, and he has taken my customers and he's threatening me. What should I do? Then other entrepreneurs will say, you know what, if you have such an employee, I had such a similar experience. This is what I did. That's a simple habit. You could have a weekend online where you just have learning and kind of engagement with the entrepreneurs. You could have like an entrepreneur, which is a social media campaign, inviting communities to share what made them want to become entrepreneurs, like what inspired them to want to be entrepreneurs. In here, we have over 500 ideas, but we are not even limited to that. The key thing that we are hoping is that you, in your space, first of all, you make sure that you organize an event during that. The team led by Abid, with Derek here and Martha, the team which is coordinated at Enterprise Uganda. That team will ask, what event are you going to do? And we hope that today, before we leave, we can pick just a quick picture of what event you're going to do, and then what support you need. Usually what we hope is that we during the week we push the Global Entrepreneurship Week brand on all. This is not an Enterprise Uganda brand, this is the Global Entrepreneurship Week brand. But we want to push that brand as much as possible, so that on all our social media handles, on all our engagements, we can be able to see that. On Enterprise Uganda's side, we will help with the coordination to the extent which we can. Sometimes people say, you know what, I want a pull-up banner to be able to do the event. That's something which we'd be glad to do. Sometimes people say, I want to be able to be linked up to this person. That's something we can be able to do. But we would want you to be able to organize this event during this week. What we are confident about is that this is a time where people come together and they breathe a little. Entrepreneurs have been going through a really tough time. The last 2 years have been tough. This year has not been any better. It's been a tough time. But this is a moment when we just lie back a bit and we breathe a little and just celebrate the journey which we have taken as entrepreneurs. I'll stop here for now and I'll hand back to, I'll give him a minute to do what he's doing. But the real task which we are going to request you to do is to just go out there and make sure at least this happens. The team from Gulu, the team from other parts of the country, this has to happen at least everywhere within the country, so that we can be able to celebrate. At this moment, I'll hand back to Abid and he will take us through the rest of the program.
Thank you, Ronald. I think Ronald was revenging there since I got him off his chai. So the activities can be anything you already have and anything in this idea bank. This is about 25 pages. And also if you want to, can do online, can be physical. There are a few more people who have walked in. Maybe I can just introduce them. They can introduce themselves briefly.
Hello everyone. My name is Max Weber Simwe. I'm from United Social Ventures. So we do training, we do consultancy for startups, young entrepreneurs, helping them go to market with impactful solutions to problems.
Also, the MD of GEW Uganda.
Good morning. I come here in two capacities. I'm the MD, GEN Uganda. The role is to coordinate the GEN activities in Uganda. And I'm also part of the staff of Enterprise Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Kevin will introduce herself in about 5 minutes. So our keynote speaker was supposed to talk about Sus Ferdinand. Unfortunately, took ill last night. Wish him a speedy recovery. We are going to continue the same issue, and Kevin will be taking note of that. I'll just tell you a bit of difference between GEN Uganda, GEN Global, and Enterprise Uganda. GEN Global is the Global Entrepreneurship Network, and it is an association of over 200 organizations worldwide that work together. Actually, maybe more like 400. So it has everybody: entrepreneurs, BDS, venture capitalists, and each country has its own team. And this is GEN Uganda. In Uganda, Enterprise Uganda hosted GEN Uganda from the beginning, but now it has been separated and it's independent. Though it's still being supported by Enterprise Uganda. So if you go to the GEN Global website, which should be genglobal.org, you see a number of activities that are there. And if you want to become the national lead for that particular activity, you just reach out to the MD of GEN Uganda and you just run with it. We get connected to hundreds and thousands of people worldwide in this particular issue. Now I'd like to invite Kevin for our issue today. As you know, the theme this year that we're going with is finding balance again. Maybe we should add it, finding balance again and again. because the last 3 years have been for entrepreneurs and BDS, they have been an exercise in reinventing yourself. Business models have changed, activities have changed, the needs of people have changed, and they keep changing. So the thing we're going with is finding your balance again. It was COVID there, yeah. It was monkeypox a few months ago. It is Ebola. It is Ukraine. I was about to talk about Nairobi, but I'll keep quiet. But it's a lot of issues that are over and over are coming up, and they affect what is on the ground. Prices have gone up, but the taxes are not going down. So also, as a BDS support organization, people will ask you, okay, you're telling me to do A, B, C, D, F, G, but the taxman is on my case. How do I handle this? You may not be an expert in this, but you need to have a bit of the information to at least get them the initial phases. People will assume that you have to pay VAT, but there are conditions for VAT. There are certain things called presumptive tax. And also when you start paying tax. What is a tax invoice? So all these things have to be there. And the tax authorities they are now applying the rules more. They're not coming up with new rules. They're just telling you, remember this rule from 2005? We're now applying it. How do you handle that? So the first time an entrepreneur comes to you, you need to be able to support them with a little bit of information before you send them on to the tax expert. So right now, Kevin is going to take us through that. Need a projector? You want to use mine? You want to introduce?
Good morning, everyone. A couple of old faces, so good to know that the BDS world evolves but also stays the same in a lot of ways. My name is Kevin Asinde. I run a marine financial group, and basically our focus is outsourced bookkeeping, tax, pre-accounting, financial management. So everything financial management, including access to finance, we do. So we have been around since 2014, basically supporting SMEs to get better. And we believe that at the initial stages, instead of hiring someone who you pay $300,000 and doesn't know and you don't know, so basically all of you are messing up, it is better to outsource the function, have someone, so basically work with a team where still they have the capacity to hire younger people, but at the same time, they have the capacity to supervise. Because some of the challenges that we shall talk about, I think the questions will come up, that are basically focused on the fact that people made mistakes 5, 10 years ago. I'm at the moment working on an account where someone did not file from 2008 to 2018. And I'm somehow supposed to convince the taxman to forgive that money. So that is basically taxation for you. I'll basically go through a rundown of what are some of the core things that we need to know. And then I know with taxation, usually a lot of Q&A is needed. So where I can answer, I will be able to answer. Where I think we need to have a deeper conversation, we can actually organize that. Okay. So back, we offer bookkeeping services, like I've said, tax support, and then we have a pre-accounting solution. I will tell you why that we went to the effort of actually coming up with a pre-accounting solution as a company. So the starting point, if you want to understand tax, is what types of statutory obligations do you have? So everyone can be focused on tax. But as you know, the NSSF Act, as people were focused on the midterm access, basically said even if you have one employee, you are supposed to basically comply with NSSF. And yet, those days, if you had a max, you had to have reached the threshold of 5 employees. But now, even if you employ one person, that person has to be basically registered with NSSF, and you have to comply. They've started sending those messages of, yeah, the Act says, so therefore you have to be able to what? To comply. So you have to basically know what statutory obligations you have, then the why comply. I'll dwell on that a little bit. And then your role in compliance is very important. Because sometimes you're like, but it is the individual. If you're like from the USA, I have clients who are based in the US, and every time they think it's the individual, it's the individual's obligation to take care of their taxes. Yes, in Uganda, the individual is the one paying because that is their money. But it is your obligation to file. So you have to know the difference between what is your obligation as a company to actually what? File taxes. Then the importance of timelines in taxation, it's very important, paying attention to the time. And then understanding income tax for small businesses, then compliance as director and as shareholder of the company. Most people don't pay attention to this fact. So we shall basically go through. Now, why comply? The hidden liabilities. Most of us think no one knows, but it's hidden, it's there, it is known to you. So unless you're very comfortable in, I'm not going to use very nice language, in Mark, it is very hard. You will know, at the back of your head, you will know there's something going on, right? You're not fully compliant, and that curtails growth. Because then you don't want to grow enough for anyone to pay attention to what? To you. You really do not want, because so long as you grow, what happens? The newspaper gets to know you, right? And then you allow, they may feature you in the newspaper. This person started from here, they have gone here. Even your uncle starts calling you, but the taxman will also say, oh my, someone has money. Let me also what? Come. I have one client who built a hotel. He hadn't been remitting taxes, but the taxman saw the hotel and just like, who did this? Everyone was so proud and said, this is the person who built the hotel. And the taxman said, but how did that person afford to build the hotel? And then he said, you know, I have been in the animal feed sector. That is how I generated my first what? The money that helped me to build the hotel. And then the taxman was like, but you know, that 30% was ours. Of those profits, because we assume that for you to build the hotel, you used the profit from the other business. So basically, 30% belonged to us. So give us 30% of the hotel. So that is basically how taxes work. And usually people blame the implementer. But that's not who to blame. The person who is to blame is the people who actually ratify, like come up with these laws. So if you want to complain, go to your MP. Those are the people you should lobby. If you are screaming at you, they're just implementing. They're just doing their job. The law has already been what? Laid down. So that is basically, so it is like, do you want to grow or not? That is the starting point. And so for each SME you're talking to, your starting point is, do you think you're going to grow? If you're going to grow, learn. Let it become a culture. Because when you comply when it is still small, it is easier to comply when the money becomes bigger. But if you are lying to yourself for maybe 5 years, that lie will catch up on you. I will show you how. Then also, ease of engaging in formal business. So generally speaking, right now, if you're going for any tender that makes a little bit of money, they are going to ask you for a TCC. You know that? They're like part of the requirements. A tax clearance what? Certificate. And your has used that. They're just like TCC. You see, you have not been complying with A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And so you find that the tax clearance that you can get in a day, if you're complying, by the way, you can apply now, and in 1 hour you've gotten it. But if you see a day has passed and they haven't responded, there is something. They'll say you have not provided provisional returns. The director has been earning, but has not been remitting. So they will give you all those things. By the time you finish that process, they have updated your account. They have uploaded your ledger. Because basically they have tried to get as much from you as what? As possible. So we shall go a little bit. So generally speaking, I remember there was a debate maybe a year ago where someone said, how can you pay the taxman before you pay your employees? And I'm like, if you don't clear the taxman, your employees in 3 months' time are not going to have jobs. So it is like, how do you get the middle ground? Because ultimately, if you're going to win more bids, you need the tax clearance. And they have made it in such a way that really, to dodge is becoming more and more difficult. Because they'll tell someone like, any company, let's say Coca-Cola, that if you put an amount in your returns as an expense, right? So I have put, for example, I paid, because most of us here are consultants, right? I paid consultancy, what, how much? What, 100 million. If I do not see that this cost, number one, the people you paid, the team was provided for. And two, if 6% was not withheld, I'm not going to allow this cost. I'm not going to allow the cost. Now that is consultancy. There are some where they'll say, you buy tomatoes from the market, right? And then you're like, but those people don't provide receipts. According to the law, if you're paying anyone above, I think it was 2,500, they're supposed to provide you a receipt. And what is the definition of a receipt according to your URA? It has to have a tax identification number. Or even the invoice. All your source documents have to have this. So do you know what's like, for example, when I had a restaurant client, what we had to do? Like in Nakawa Market, there is a guy, he doesn't have a shop, a stall. All he has is his receipt book. All he has is his receipt book. So that you go to buy tomatoes, onions, etc., etc. He goes and buys it and provides you a receipt that has a what? Because Yes, they might allow, but you've opened yourself up to the risk of possibly them disallowing that what? That cost. So like, for example, all your receipts, you should literally pay attention to it. Does it have the tin or doesn't it have it? Because if it doesn't have it, they have a right to reject it because they have defined the features of a what? A receipt. So, under statutory obligations, I just basically, for you to, for a business typically, number one, there is permissions. And you just talked about this, that someone looks at a trading license and says that's a tax. That's not a tax. That's a permission to allow you to actually what? Operate. Right? So, separate, and I will show you a little bit slower how those two are different. So, permissions, you have to basically take care of them. Then, corporation tax, which in Uganda is how much? 30 what? 30% of your net profit. Pay attention to the word. Net what? Profit. It is not of your turnover. Then there is payee. So payee, even if you have one person in your payroll, ensure that you're remitting payee. So sometimes you find that you've not yet been forced to actually start remitting. But the core question you're supposed to ask yourself, I'll go a little bit in detail, is are you paying that person more than 235,000 Ugandan shillings? If the answer is yes, then you have to what? However you turn it that I'm paying per week, or you try to make it a wage, as so long as it hits the 235,000, unless you've given that person a consultancy agreement, and of which a consultancy agreement, the 6% withholding applies. So, and then there is, of course, NSSF, which really I think we should pay attention to the process of like lawmaking. Because this one, they sneaked it in because people were too focused on midterm access. People were too focused. We want a midterm access. So now, as a business, one single employee, you have to remit how much? NSSF. And remember that 10%, because it's 15%, right? The 10% is on you as the employer. It's only the 5% that is on you as is on the employee. But usually when people are having discussions around payments, they are not using the words, is this gross or is this net? You just say we are paying you 500. We are paying you 500. If I was employees, I would say, you said 500. So I assume that is a net position, not a gross what? Position. So, another thing, and this goes to, I realize that when I'm having conversations with BDS, I assume that people are doing it. So this goes to also BDS, directors' returns. Go back and assess. Are you filing directors' returns? Because as a director, as much as you're remitting payee, they assume that as a director of a company, you're probably earning dividends and you're probably having other sources of what? Of income. So it means that you have to file at the end of the year, almost like a business person, that says, these were my various sources of what? Of income. So far, prepayment is to a tune of this what? Amount. The balance of it, please have it. So you have to file as a what? As a director. Because usually, if your company is clean, probably you, the director, you're not too what? Not too clean. And then, URSB returns for the business. Most people also don't pay attention to this. They basically only pay attention to it when they need a resolution. You want to open another bank account and you're like, I need a resolution. Only to go to register a resolution, then they tell you you have not filed your what? Your returns. So you have to take care of the what? The returns for URSB. And these things usually, like URSB plus maybe a little bit support, it's like what? 50,000. 50, 70. Now because of the system, we hope the system reaches a point where it's like they have a system, but it's still so much in transition that sometimes you have again to go backwards to help to get someone internally there to approve for you. Then, of course, VAT, when you're eligible, I mentioned it. So when your turnover arrives at 150,000 shillings, minimum, you have to register for VAT. If you're a professional here as BDS, it doesn't matter what your turnover is. You have to be registered for what? VAT. Professional services generally have to be registered for what? For VAT. Okay. If you have a burning one, you can ask. Now, your role in compliance. So, basically, your role is to file and collect on behalf of government as a business. So how? For payee, it is not your money. It is the employee's money that you're withholding. Of course, depends on how you look at it. But it is the employee's money that you're withholding to remit to the taxman. This is why when you're having the conversation with the employee, you say, I'm paying you a gross amount of 1 million shillings. That means you're going to deduct the how much? There's somehow about 200 and something from their what? Pay to remit. So it is the employee's money. Your obligation is on filing. For VAT, most people complain, but what you have to reconcile with your brain is that this is not your money. You're basically saying, my price to offer this service is 1 million shillings. However, for every service I offer, the government adds 18% on that what? To collect from the other person. So it is not your money. It was not your money to begin with. You added it after your what? Your price. So 18%, that one also. On professional fees, withholding on professional fees, the 6%. And this is also professional fees on supplies. That you withhold 6% of that amount of money and you remit to the taxman. Then, another role is informing the taxman of your position. This is even greater than payment. It is greater than payment. Filing returns is bigger than payment because the penalty or non-filing is way higher than the penalty on delayed payment. So please file your return. If you need to put a nil position, put a nil what? Position. But don't just say for me, They will not catch me now. Just put 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and they will ask you, but at least put the 0. Do not ignore it. And then making payments, of course. Then respond when they send a question. Don't ignore it. you're making the situation what? Worse. So usually, make sure that you actually respond. And typically nowadays, they will give you within the week to respond. I've had emails which are telling me you have a meeting at 3:30 when the email came at 5. And I call and I'm like, but it was 3:30. So you even have to call to argue over that. Otherwise, they'll say, we tried to reach you and your phone was not going through, or you have a wrong phone number on the account, so the problem is on you. You get it? Eh? So you have to be, literally have to pay attention. Okay, so I'm just going to go through the taxation filing timelines. Number 1, on payee and withholding, communicate monthly to the taxman. Basically, tell them your position monthly. Whether it is 0, put 0, but communicate monthly. Then every 6 months in relation to income tax, you have to communicate every 6 months. So how? There are 2 tax periods that people tend to. Generally, everyone is they shift you to July to June, so that it matches the fiscal year of the okay. So July to June, and then also those ones Jan to what? To December. But most times, people who are Jan to December apply for it. So if you want to change your period, you can change your period. So if your year is July to June, here is what you should do. For example, let's give the year which is July 2021 to June 2022, right? So right now, to June 2022. So between July 2022 to December, you have to file your final returns for the previous year. So they give you 6 months to file. Then also, you have to put in your provisional returns for the next financial year, for the current financial year, which is July 2022 to June 2023. So you're basically putting your provisional to say, I anticipate to make this amount of what? Of money. But be careful that if you put the anticipation of July to June 2023, around April to May, update the status and say, actually, I have a correction in how much I think I'm going to what? To earn. Because they usually penalize you for under-declaring what you anticipate to what? To earn. So it is important that you amend your what? Your returns. So that is basically how you communicate with the tax month, July, June. Now, between Jan to December, so you will have finished the financial year in December. Between January and June, you have to file your final returns as well as work on your provisional what? Returns. Then small business tax administration, that was added because people refused to take on bookkeeping services. So basically they know if you worked on your accounts, it would be in such a way that you are able to demonstrate whether you've generated a profit or a loss, and 30% apply on that. But people said they cannot, it is very difficult, it is too expensive. So what the government did is, instead of looking at your net position, they look at your turnover. They come and say, how much did you sell? And then there is a threshold for small tax what? Yeah. And then in relation to the corporation, I've already given that, which is 30%. And then, so as a director, you also have to remit your taxes, as I have already talked about. Then I said differentiate between income tax and permissions. I'm trying to now start catch up with time, so we shall move relatively fast. So in the small business administration, if your gross turnover exceeds 5 million but does not exceed 10 million, so meaning the whole year you've generated 10 million, it's nil. If it is under 20 million but above 10 million, it is about 450. And then, or 30%, or 3%. Then there is above 20, under 30 is basically 750,000. Then 30 to 40, about 1 million shillings. And then 40 to 50 is about 1.350. So it means they haven't recognized whether you have generated a profit or a loss. They just basically go to what is your sales position. Now, some people think they are clever. They go and use this one. But if a professional, someone withheld from you, it will demonstrate you above the threshold. So for corporation, you basically focus on what were my sales, and if you have direct costs, so cost of sales, what is my gross position, indirect costs, net profit. The 30% applies at this stage for those who are basically looking at accounting. Let me focus on this right now. So imagine we have a business that has record keeping and is compliant. They generate 100 million. Their direct costs with all the receipts, is about 80 what? Million. Gross position is 20 what? Million. So then they come, they are paying rent. So here is what will happen to some of the businesses who work in town. The landlord says, these taxes are too much. So you give me, you pay the money, but I'll give you a receipt of 500,000. It happens. Don't demonstrate that I'm actually, you're paying me 3 million. It means you cannot recognize your entire expense where? Under rent. It means you're going to lose money. So you probably will underrepresent. You will see the impact of underrepresentation. So there is rent. Then in salaries, you're saying, for me, I am not yet ready for payee. I am not going to what? To file. That is all well and good. But that means you can't fully represent it in your what? Your P&L. That means you're going to underrepresent. You've paid 15 million, you will have to say that you've actually paid 10 what? Million. Then fuel, you are the type who goes to the petrol station and just drives off after paying. People use this money. The only way to manage tax is to be prudent with your receipts. Like you come here, you take a coffee, pick that receipt, take it. You're in a fuel cell, take that receipt. Because ultimately, it is the one that will reduce for you this position. If you don't take that receipt, I usually say, why am I struggling asking people to get receipts? This is the only way you're going to reduce your tax what? Obligation. So the trading license, why we don't call a trading license a what? A tax. We call it a permission. It's because it's actually deducted here. So there is no one who is double taxing you. It's just because you've refused to do your books of accounts. That's why you feel double what? Taxed. Then, of course, the total cost is about 25. So, which means you've made a loss. 30% of a negative is what? 0. So you're literally paying 0 in what? But that's because you have collected all the documents and you have complied. Right? To the extent that right now, if you put in a return without, the landlord's TIN, they're not going to allow that return. So in the case where someone is basically not complying, it means your cost of sales, you can only track the 60 million. It means 40 million in gross. Then your rent, you allow the landlord to dictate for you. So you can only put the 3 million. The salaries, you can't put the entire value. You put 10. The fuel, you didn't collect the receipts. So we can only put the what? The 500,000. So it means that your net position is actually 26 what? Million. 30% of 26 million. Do I need to say more there? Okay. So there are things that typically you can't say, and we can't go so much in detail because of the time. So there are things that do not belong. You saw the statement that I shared with you there. Is the income what? Statement. So anything that is a balance sheet item, for those who remember that, the balance sheet items, does not belong in the conversation of tax. So you can't make a statement like, I don't have money. That is not an income statement item. If we go back here, it is just basically demonstrating to you what you sold vis-a-vis how much you spent to sell it vis-a-vis the indirect costs. It is not saying, do you have money or don't you have money? That is a cash flow statement. So it doesn't belong in the tax what? Conversation. For those who want to know more, we shall discuss it a bit later. But I have a loan. That is a balance sheet item. When you bring a loan into the business, it goes into the balance sheet and not the income what? Statement. The only thing that belongs to the income statement is the interest on the loan. That is basically the expense that you're incurring. So that is not valid. But I have not even paid staff yet, unless you're using a cash basis for accounting. I'm running the rest, which you will ask questions. Now, in terms of the payee, it will be a nil return. A nil if someone is not exceeding 235. So from above that, you're basically, so you will see, there are some times when you're paying someone 300,000, you're probably going to pay about 7,500. Why don't you do it? You guess it, eh? Just do that. And then also between 335 and 410. So it's the 10% plus 20% of the amount. So those ones, the calculators exist. That helps you put a number and the calculation runs down, so you don't need to cram it. Then also exceeding 110. So record all transactions. I can't emphasize that enough. Fuel, airtime, data. Basically anything that you can bring to the, as a director, you're even allowed to take care of your car using the company. So bring an expense into the what? Into the business, the ones that are allowable. Here is the example I give. If Donald Trump managed to get all his hair like dressing into the business expense, you have to try to, okay, this is where I think I will say, okay, with the taxman, Donald Trump did something. Although whether it's allowable or not allowable is another question. So he made his persona a business. So that means if my hair is worked on well, I get business, and therefore it's a business what? Expense. And then comply. Make sure that every third party you pay, you take care of it. Then ensure that people provide you receipts. have the tax identification numbers, get sometimes an accountant to support the process, especially setup, because sometimes the mess comes from you believing that you know. Then filing is more important than paying. Then anyone above 235, then negotiate with staff on gross amounts, not net. Everyone should basically provide you their teams and prices, inclusive of, try to pay attention to that. A professional sends you, ask the question, is it inclusive, exclusive? Because it will come back. Let me tell you, it will come back. Especially if you are setting yourselves up for what? For growth. So I think I have 3 minutes to the Q&A only.
Okay, there are a number of questions, I'm sure. At this start. Okay, as enterprise, whenever we're talking to clients, we tell them, are you recording your income? Are you recording your expenses? Record all the money that comes in. Record all the money that goes out. Remember, there's a gentleman who was giving people lunch, but wasn't recording it. And when we compiled it, that came to about 3 million shillings every year. Like, what? Yeah, record that and get. So let's open up for questions. Okay. Okay. Do you want to take one by one?
Thank you. The first one is, are you going to share that presentation with us? Okay, thank you, because that has been really, really impactful. Great information. Thank you so much for putting that together. You can't see me. Oh, so people here. Okay. All right, thank you so much for sharing this. It's been such an insightful presentation because there's a lot that I've learned today. I have learned about the URSB filing. I had no clue what that actually is. But it will be very, very helpful if you can share that presentation so I can go back and do some study. Make sure I'm on the right side of the law. So what I needed to ask in relation to receipts, for example. I'm in a habit of collecting receipts. The challenge is sometimes you purchase an item or you go to a petrol station where they can only give you those paper written receipts. So not all actually issue one with a VAT. So does that mean that if I collect a receipt that does not have a tin or the printed one for VAT, does that mean that it doesn't really count? Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much. Basically, my question was, what determines a consultant? Because there are some cases where you tell a taxman that this person is a consultant, and they sit down with them and they're like, no, they're not a consultant, you need to pay. So how can you determine a consultant?
Thank you so much, Kevin. Borrowing from Abid's case, if you have been providing people meals, for example, and we understand that these meals, sometimes they are prepared in-house. You have someone who is in charge of the kitchen and they're on employment, and then definitely whatever they buy is more than the 2,500 as you said, but they never get receipts. Or sometimes it is only when you buy in bulk that you will get some receipts sometimes. So if you have been providing people meals, what is the difference between recording the meals on the other side, or what is the difference? Where would the advantage be? Recording the meals that you have provided to the employees, since you don't have receipts from the boat staff, is recording those meals any better, or does it make the situation any better? Thank you.
Okay, to the first question, number one, it is not a VAT invoice or a VAT receipt yet. It is just a receipt. In its description should have a tax identification number. So if the receipt does not have a tax identification number on it, the challenge is you've opened it up, you've opened that expense up for challenge. So it will depend on someone's mood on whether to allow it or not to what? To allow it. If it is insignificant, they might not over-challenge you. But if it is very repetitive in your P&L and it takes a chunk of money, they are definitely going to question it because they will think that is you trying to dodge. That is number one. To your question on what is the description of a consultant. So, if you basically employ someone, give someone a consultancy contract, but you have defined for them the time they work, you have given them a laptop, you are following them to a certain degree. It doesn't matter if you have called it a consultancy agreement or not, the taxman will say that is an employee. And so treat them as what? As such. So if you want it to not be questionable, in addition to that agreement, just make sure that the laptop is theirs, they define their own time, so there are those ingredients that they basically look at to define. So it depends on how much someone is actually after you. So sometimes these people can really be after you and like go to that extent. Sometimes they will be a little bit lenient. So in relation to the food question and when and how, my recommendation would be get like 3 people who typically they buy from tomatoes and etc, and they give you a receipt. They record in their book and give you a receipt once a month. So in that way, you kind of have the receipt from where it was bought from. Now, if you basically say, I'm going to record the meals from this other end, that amount of meals could amount to this person being like you yourself being your own what? Supplier, and therefore you should have withheld a particular amount. So that's more tricky. How did you value it in terms of the what? The output of the meal. So it would be better they just record for you and give you a receipt like once a month to make sure that that is managed.
I have when Kevin mentioned something about the directors can get expenses to the company, there's my local, as they call it. I go there, those people have receipts that have TIN numbers, and I'm friends with the cashier. I tell her, any receipt that has been not claimed, give it to me. Just give it. And she's like, yes. No. Okay, maybe we can have 3 more questions. I hope you're getting ideas for things how you can advise yourself, your own business, because you are also running businesses, and also you can advise your clients who you work with, the enterprise you support. We can have 3 more questions, and also I hope you're getting ideas for activities that you can do during GEW as we talk. So,
thank you so much, Kevin. This has been very good and insightful. Yes, this has been very good and insightful. I would like to find out about the TCC you mentioned earlier. What are the 1-2 things that can delay any entrepreneur businessman from getting a TCC, assuming I'm in touch with the taxman, we've organized the plan, if need be? What are the other 1-2 things that I should look out for?
Thank you, Kevin. Now, I religiously keep my receipts from fuel stations. But of late, they're giving us these printed out receipts. And after a month or 2, the thing has started to fade away. So now, in that case, what do you advise? Are they intentionally giving us fake?
Maybe mine is also a follow-up. Equally, ever since I knew it's very critical to be accountable for these transactions. We actually, even on mobile transactions, we even capture the transactional costs captured and the slips and whatever. But just to follow up, one, I've had situations where I have receipts which you literally cannot see. You have it, you collect, but you actually cannot see. And then there is where, yes, the instances where you transact, you actually don't receive. They sign. If you have a lot of that, how is this taken? Thank you.
Thanks so much. And is my name. My question is in regard to the consultants which are across the country. I think we had a case whereby someone was from Kenya providing us a service. When they were sending us their invoice, they included VAT and everything. Now on our end, we're also trying to look into it. We're like, what do we pay, what do we not pay? How do you handle such a thing? Of course, we won the argument, but what was the best way to go around it? Thank you.
That's my mind. Thanks, Kevin. I had a question. Supposing if you have an offshore company and it's the one that is registered, so I don't know, maybe you can advise on the tax things there. Thank you.
I think for the offshore company, you have to sit down with Kevin and ask. Okay, our last question.
Thank you so much, Kevin. My question is around the director's returns. I think I might know the answer to this, but I just need clarification. So what happens in a situation where the country director isn't really entitled to dividends? How do you go about that? You're just a director by name for the sake of URSB, but you're not entitled to dividends.
So basically, in regards to, let me start with the last question. So if you're a director, just with your SB, clarify, did they actually indicate you in the URA portal? If they did, they have to demonstrate what you have to demonstrate in your account, in your filing, whether you are earning or not. Most like, because you're not earning, you have to put a nil in relation to that company. So your return at the end of the year should demonstrate, typically you'll find that someone is actually employed full-time somewhere else. So it has to demonstrate that position of earning, and then it has to demonstrate the position of this company where you are basically included as a director, even if it is nil. Of course, they are challenging that. They're like, how can a director not earn anything, right? But at least you have an argument to actually, like, you have two legs standing and saying this person earns from elsewhere. URSB, those days used to force you to have two directors, and therefore this is why people have that situation. Right now, we are going through a process of actually deactivating some of those directors, to the extent that what we are doing is you go to URSB, remove the director, take that resolution to URA, they remove that director from the list, come back to URSB and add back that person. You get it? Because sometimes it's actually better to have two, it's generally better to have two directors, right? But URA is making it such a hassle that we have to kind of do something like that. It is not the perfect solution, but it's the current solution we are what? We are working with. Pardon? If they're not registered with the URA, they will not hassle you over the director's returns. So the key thing right now, if you put two directors in URSB, only take one person earning within that company to URA. Don't take both the what? The people. Then to the question of foreign consultants. Basically, usually at the beginning of the consultancy, you you are supposed to find out if between you and Uganda there's some type of they call it, I think, a tax agreement between the two countries, and you see whether the VAT applied in Uganda can be utilized the other side, if or not. In terms of professional fee, the amount that is supposed to be withheld when someone is actually working in Uganda and their foreign entity, it is 15%. So you basically have to make sure that for foreign consultants, you're remitting 15% of the value of their contract. Now, to the question of the receipts from the fuel stations, typically in accounting, when we have those receipts, we basically get the receipt, photocopy, and stamp so that it never gets erased. Because according to the law, your receipts have to be valid for a period of 5 years. So after 5 years, they expect that receipt to be visible. If it is not, it is on you. Yeah, you get it. But for fuel stations, actually, they can give you that receipt and you tell them also to write for you the hard copy receipt and they'll do it. They'll basically do it. But for all receipts, like for example, you go to supermarkets, they'll typically give you those types of receipts. So in accounting, paper, we are talking about the environment and etc. But we typically use one first used paper on the back side to do such what? Such work. And then I think there are two questions I'm struggling to remember. Roy, what was your question again, if you can just... Yes, so, yeah. So now, like, when you're giving, like, for example, too many receipts that have acknowledgement, because here is what you do. Make sure that it's an acknowledgement form where someone is acknowledging receipt of transport to a particular location to another location, that they will recognize that in terms of the acknowledgement, if the third party actually signed it. And also in terms of if it is a professional, make sure you withhold regardless of whether it is an acknowledgement form. And then also make sure that it is the number of the person is there if they want to verify. If the person, in terms of if the person is really a professional. So this typically happens when you have participants in rural areas. You find that you're having meals, you're having like transport refund, you're having etc. And you can't, generally speaking, get the receipts that you require. Here is what you do. For meals, try to get a professional service provider, because I have had a scenario where they tried to reject those meals. They said you're just hiding money there. So try to get a professional service provider who can actually provide you the what? So it depends on who is coming at you. And usually I say, the people who are helping you to dodge taxes internally here, those staff who say, I don't care even if you don't withhold pay. Those are the ones who go and say, by the way, you look at the other person. They are not what? They are not withholding. So basically, you have to be a bit careful on how you what? You manage. Then your question was? Yeah, on TCC, so far what we have seen in terms of directors, pay attention to directors' returns. All the directors who are listed there, complying. That is the big one. Then, now they are really, really trying to collect tax to the extent that they are expecting that a director provides them a provisional position for their income tax, which is not fair. I'm still complaining to them about it. So they want you to anticipate the amount that you're going to earn as a director so that you file. So pay attention to that. Then go back on directors also. Still pay attention. How was the director registered for? Was he registered as an employee, or did someone make a mistake of putting business income? Because if you made a mistake of putting business income, they will expect you to go through the process of what are my incomes, what are the expenses, etc., etc. So how, and initially when teens started going online, you could just basically go to an internet cafe with someone with less experience and they mess up the what? Your registration. So it's core. Go back to the registration and what kind of that certificate, what did they actually put? And then also go back to the certificate and say, did you say that you're going to, you've registered for VAT, you've registered for pay as you earn? Because if you have and you haven't been remitting, that is basically part of the what? The challenge. That when you're registering, you anticipated the position, that is not yet what? True. Then also your provisional returns, have you filed them? If your provisional returns are not filed, you have to basically pay attention. And then again, once again for directors, did they put some rental income in their what? Registration? Because they will come back to you and say, in relation to rental income, or have you maybe bought, sold land, someone put stamp duty, and now they start assuming that you are supposed to pay rental what? Income. So those are some of the things that basically will delay you. Then for payee, typically, if you have been generally complying, if you have like a month in pending, they still might give you the TCC because you already complying. And then for withholding is one that they are not yet paying attention to too much. So that one you can get away a little bit with it not being flagged. But generally speaking, also make sure that the people who are withholding from you generate, but you also can generate from your side a tax credit what? Certificate. So that tax credit certificate is basically tracking how much you say you're earning vis-a-vis how much the taxman knows you're already earning. So sometimes you want to lie, but the withholdings that have been done will demonstrate that in fact you've earned this amount of money. Hence, today I didn't want to talk about the IFRS, but hence the IFRS system. So the IFRS system is basically allowing the taxman to know how much you're earning in real time, to the extent that when you try to dodge a position, the person who basically you sent the invoice to, when you were sending that invoice, it demonstrated that you were earning income. So that means you might be saying that you've not yet reached the VAT threshold of 150 million, but the taxman knows that you've already reached it. And the thing with tax in Uganda, they allow you to comply. And they might keep quiet for 5 years. They will not even come back to you. Okay, that is not true anymore. They're trying to collect as much as possible. So probably they will reach you within 3 years. From 5 years. But imagine that you've spent 3 years not knowing you have a hidden obligation. And then all of a sudden, now you start thinking that you're just making traction. And then boom, they like, when this year, I think, Jan Feb, I was defending a 2 billion. Yes, we brought it down to about 100 million, but the headache, the client could say, Kevin, I'm waking up in a cold sweat. Like, this is so stressful. So you kind of have to, and they allow you to first mess up so that they can collect penalties. I actually think part of what they are trying to do is just get as much penalties from people as they can. Because there no one can really. And they will tell you, it is system generated. What can we do? And also, the fact of the matter is, the staff of URA are very stressed people. Very, very stressed people. Because your KPI, their KPIs are measured on how much did you collect. And if you allowed someone to get off, was it corruption? Was it, even if the issue was really clear, so the URS staff, they're just like, Kevin, you think you are the one who is stressed. I am equally stressed. I would have helped you, but really, it is difficult. So if you work, there's no room anymore. Apparently now the new commissioner has a little bit of more knowledge on IT, and so he's starting to use big data to catch everyone. So
Shamil, we have, okay, Kevin is going to be available here. These are her contacts. I think her phone number is not clear, but okay, so we do have a WhatsApp group where most people are on, so we can add you to this ecosystem group. Thank you very much, Kevin. I know. So tax is a really big issue, and it is something that you can actually organize a GEW activity around. GEW is going to be from 14th to 20th of November. You can do a virtual activity, you can do a physical activity. As Enterprise Uganda will provide you with access to some amazing speakers. For example, now you know about Kevin. I saw people taking pictures of this particular page to get our contacts. So you can reach out to them and you see what to do. Then we also we're also trying to bring more people to the room in different spheres. There are a few people who have walked in. I'll just mention a few names. There's Brian from Tubayo, who won an award over the weekend. I think for social media stuff. Can just talk about it.
Good morning. How are you all? I'm so sorry I came in late. That's not what I usually do. But my name is Brian Namanya, and I'm the founder of Tubayo. Tubayo is an online travel marketplace. It's the Airbnb of Africa. So we give tools to individuals just like you to list your homes, your country homes, and earn that extra income. Or if you have experiences and you have events that you want to manage, you have the best software and tools for you to do that. And the award that I won is Top Tech Influencer. So I think right now I'm going over with the accountants how much I should be charging to talk about technology. But it was a big honor, really, getting that kind of award from Pulse and the community. So happy to be here and to meet you all.
Tubayo also organizes a monthly market day for young entrepreneurs. I think it's at Motive. And they have about 2,000 people, 100 businesses, 2,000 people passing by monthly. Ivazu does game nights, which I didn't talk about, in different bars in town.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Motebe from the Federation of Small and Medium Enterprises. We are the voice of SMEs. That's what we want to call ourselves.
Yes, Federation of Small and Medium Enterprises. We have 4 people here who have introduced themselves.
Hello, my name is Pisamaro from Challenges Uganda. We basically focus on management consulting, and we are currently the ones responsible for the, hopefully it's famous, Youth to Work program, which focuses on 2 objectives: providing BDS support to enterprises, at the same time providing opportunities for young people to become more employable.
Actually, that Ready to Work is in partnership with APSA. Stanchart, sorry. Yeah. So that one, at least, they actually place people want to be placed in organizations.
We are actually currently recruiting SMEs to be a part of the next cohort.
All right. Tech bars, you have some competition, similar.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bram Haji. I'm happy to be here. I'm an entrepreneur, and I represent a company called Payment Works. We specialize in brand strategy, so we clarify your voice and then put a shine on you. Just represent your authentic self as a business. And I do many other things. Don't just tell the taxman. It's a gig economy. We are always on Tubayo finding gigs. So yeah, pretty much that's it. Thank you so much. But I'm here with my colleague as well. I'd like him to introduce himself.
So guys, Kasos Kasim. I work for Uplink Media. I'm a cinematographer. Yeah.
Nothing about Ram. Used to, which football club was that? Express. You are the what? The CEO of Express. So the man has moved around in the business space.
Good morning. My name is Senta Msiraj, an entrepreneur. I own a company, Medmark Uganda Limited. It's a medical distribution company. I worked in with my colleague, Edward. Happy to be here.
Thing about Medmark, number of companies are setting up outside of the urban areas. Number of entrepreneurs are setting up medical space out of the medical hot hub of Kampala. And one of the things that always messes people up is, interestingly, drugs, not the legal kind, but the medical kind, are surprisingly easy to get. There are a lot of wholesalers, but equipment is still a problem, and that's where Medmark comes up. So there are a lot of angles in the room for partnership, and also for what activity you can do around Global Entrepreneurship Week. With GEW, the main thing is, how can you reach out to an entrepreneur to get them a little bit of what you do, so they know about you and you also get to know about them. And anything that is supporting entrepreneurs in any way can become a GEW activity. GEW usually does something to do with franchising. So they provide opportunities to people to become franchisees of GEW. So usually they talk about that during their GEW activity. Tech Bars usually has a number of events. Flip also has, I think, online events that they usually do. But you can also partner with Ivazu, for example. If they have a game night somewhere, there's an interesting game with financial literacy called Pesa Smart. Very nice game, very nice game. Yeah, produced by yours truly. Yeah. So we have also partnered with Ivazu on that. So you can reach out. There's Pitch Fest coming up. There's so many activities you can do. Anything. Anything. Generally, Uganda, the entrepreneurship space in Uganda and Sub-Saharan Africa, SMEs employ over 60% of the employed people. I was surprised because I thought the MTNs of this world aren't that employed a bit. No, they don't. They employ such a small subset of the employed people. So it is the SMEs that are doing most of the heavy lifting in the economy. And whatever way you can help one person move from 0 to 2,400 shillings so they don't reach the tax person. When you say 2,000, was that in shillings or in dollars? 2,500 per receipt. In shillings. So since the price of eggs has increased, and I got a Rolex stand and asked for 2 chapatis and 4 eggs, I have to get a receipt. Okay. Anything can be an activity. You can just look out. You can even look about all the events that you do normally. What we do is that you put it with our network and we tell them about your activity. We tell them about your brand, both locally and internationally. For something to be tagged as GEW activity, you just tell us about it. All you do is you add the Global Entrepreneurship logo to it, and you just mention Global Entrepreneurship Week. That is all. And you tell us about it, we tell people, and we spread it. Social media, international. We usually have partnerships, radio stations, TVs, and we do tell people about your brand. But I think the most important thing that we provide as Gen Uganda is a linkage to other service providers like you. Because in this room, there are people who can help your business grow. And you as a business, you are unable to do everything. You need linkages with other people. I want to, any questions before we close officially? I'm trying to catch the time. Okay.
Thank you so much, Abid. I just want to correct you a little bit. Not every employed person is employed. No, not so many people are just employed by MSMEs or SMEs, but also startups are doing a tremendous job. And I always want to amplify that voice. I want to mention that, as Aria said, I lead policy with Startup Uganda and Innovation and an association for innovation and entrepreneurship support organizations. And for that matter, I want to mention that there is Uganda Innovation Week coming up that has been rebranded from Kampala Innovation Week. And between or within the period of GEW Week, we are going to be running pre-events. If you don't have an event to run or you haven't thought about something, we can have a chat and then we give you a pre-event for Uganda Innovation Week, where certainly Startup Uganda or Uganda Innovation Week is going to support you in doing the, the advertising material and all that. And of course, add Jen, let Jen also be part of, the Uganda Innovation Week. And together, you, Jen, and Uganda Innovation Week can make it a blissful event. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Somebody interested in November is going to be full of activities. There's a National Science Week. There is a Global Enterpreneurship Week. The week after that, there is Uganda Innovation Week. Then after that, there is the Health Innovation Conference. There are a lot of these events that are happening. And everybody can actually benefit from each other if we just collaborate. There's something that we have been running under Gen Uganda, which is the Enterpreneurship World Cup. This is a pitch for startups, idea, growth, anything. It's the world's grandest prize of $500K US. And the most we have had was one company make it to the top 100. Yet these are opportunities that are there. Just getting to that, just applying for some of these things gets you a lot of online tools, gets you a lot of expertise and experience. We just need to share. So with Gen Uganda, this is what we're trying to do, and we are trying to work with as many people as possible. So please do think about any activity. We shall be calling you throughout the end of the week just to ask you something. If you want to link with somebody, or if you see certain things happening around and you want to get to know or to get in touch with them, get in touch. We shall help you to link with this person. You can do an activity for GEW. I was really hoping the Football League people would be here because we partnered with them over some things, and people go play for football. They play for 30, 40 minutes, but stay for 6 hours. And these opportunities where you can talk about business. I was at one of those Smack League on Sunday, and someone is like, wait, I need a business consult now. I sat down for 30 minutes. Just tell her about how to do a very quick SWOT analysis for her business. I talked about the game, and someone's like, can my child play this game? Yes, this is how they help you with savings. These opportunities where you can go. Tubayo is here, Jibu is here, everybody is around. Just reach out to them. I would like to invite them to close officially, but you can stay. After that, we're just trying to officially close and keep time. No, okay.
Thank you, Abid. Good morning once again. I think it has been a good morning, an exciting morning. I've seen many new faces. Kevin has taught us. Thank you, each and every one of you, for making time this morning and coming so that we all connect and plan for the Global Entrepreneurship Week. Allow me to recognize Mr. Masiko of Numa Feeds. I've never forgotten his testimony that he came for Global Entrepreneurship Week event held by Enterprise Uganda and connected with a very big market, the Capital Shoppers Market, which he had been trying to access for a long time, but the connection during the GEW week did it for him. And of course, you can find Numa Feeds in Capital Shoppers. Please also allow me to recognize Dr. Peter Ngategize, who is in the house. Thank you very much for being around. Allow me not to continue doing that because it will take another morning. But thank you. Please, as you've been told, plan one activity, and it's not prescribed. Just be enterprising. Think of what you can do. The girls, you can get together, have a girls get together, challenge each other to do business, how to grow your businesses. You can do startup huddle, where one person stands naked about his business and you give him business solutions. Whatever creative thing you can do, do it so that we celebrate entrepreneurship, we grow our enterprises, and we are able to get more testimonies. Before we close, I just wanted to mention that Global Entrepreneurship Network, one of the activities it does, it's an annual Global Entrepreneurship Congress. This is a worldwide convention where business people, business supporters from all over the world get together and learn from each other, encourage each other, get opportunities to work together. This year, the GEC was in Riyadh, and the one of next year is going to be in Australia, Melbourne. I always hear Rotarians running to the conventions and having a good time. This is a business convention. You can plan, you can start saving to be able to go to Melbourne. If you are interested, when the time comes, we'll share with you the information. You get in touch. They usually support you in the documents for visas, and it's a great time. Maybe Abid can say his last experience in Riyadh. I've been going for a number of them. Otherwise, thank you very much. Please keep in touch, do something, be creative, be enterprising. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Mary. Yes, talking about Riyadh, yes, we are there this year. Actually, interesting that people who were handling the visa was the Kingdom of Saudi itself. So actually, we ended up in a palace. And I went to Mecca, did Umrah, so please call me Haji. No more beads. Haji Abid. Yeah? We shall have our conference as usual, which will be in November. We shall communicate where it will be. We try to get as many entrepreneurs in the room as possible. We're also trying to have a separate one which has a bit of companies that have had some bit of growth. And we can also invite you to just talk to them. So please do a GEW activity. Please do get in touch. Allow me to officially close today's GEW launch. Thank you very much for making it. And now our theme is finding your balance, finding balance again. But maybe we should add and again, because it seems you have to find balance again and again as a business. All right, thank you very much. All right, thank you for making it. Hey, hold on.
Just in case you are one of those head starters and you already have an idea for what you are going to do, please talk to him so that he records it.
All right, thank you very much. You have your ideas, you can talk to Jericho, Martha, or myself. We shall record. If you already have your existing ideas, for example, you have your market day running, you can just say, this particular time in November, it will be a GEW activity, and we can invite one of these people to come and speak there. If you already have your franchise running, anything you're already doing, you have a game night. Or if you have team buildings, actually do team building also. Please talk to people in the room. Cameraman, please cut. Tumaze. So I can put down this mic.